Today, I'm speaking with retail and media industry veteran Jim Fielding. He has led some of the world's most beloved media and retail brands, including Disney, Claire's, DreamWorks, 20th Century Fox, and more. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I met you before.
A long time ago.
A long time ago. And so I want to bring our listeners back. I saw you at NRF when you told the story of the Disney stores.
Yeah.
And I will never forget the slide you showed, which was that who owned it? Children's Place owned Disney?
Children's Place owned the license for the stores, for about
So,
4 years. Yeah,
so
for
you
about 4
told the
years.
story about how you woke up and on the front page of the paper, and you had a picture of Mickey with a big saw going down his front. And you said that's where they decided to bring the stores back to Disney, right? And that's what your whole impetus was. So
Yeah,
share with us
yeah,
that story a little bit, because I think it was really great and it gave us a chance to get to know each other.
yeah. I mean, it was interesting because at the time, I was the head of retail sales and marketing for global consumer products, the licensing business. And so since the Disney store was a license with the Children's Place in North America, tangentially, they were underneath me, but honestly, I didn't spend a ton of time on them because they were pretty self-sufficient. And they had a really good team, by the way. And they went through a leadership change, and their leadership change had given our unit and the board of directors of Disney a heads up that they were not really wanting to be in the licensed retail business anymore, that they really wanted to concentrate on their own stores. And so, the story I told that you were there for is I got pulled out of my job and, put into this like double secret probation room with a bunch of smart people. And I had to look at alternatives for Disney Store and present scenarios to Bob Iger and Andy Mooney. Andy Mooney was the boss, my head of consumer products, and ultimately the board on, the scenario planning. And I had to be really fair and balanced because even though I had a passion for retail and a passion for Disney Store, I couldn't be like campaigning for a job for myself. And so I had to really present, and we really presented 3 solid options, pros and cons. Coming out of that meeting with Bob and Andy, coming out of the board meeting, I literally overnight became president of global Disney stores because we still owned the stores in Japan and Europe. And so overnight on May 1st, 2008, we had to create this global organization. And you remember, Bob, because you're a historian of retail, August 2008 was the death of retail. It was the global recession. And so I was feeling pretty good. We were putting the team together. We were working on our strategy. We were, working on how we were going to upgrade the product and the experience and the whole bit. And then all of a sudden we start running -30, -40, -50 comps like everybody else in the industry. Traffic just died. And I still to this day give Bob Iger and Andy Mooney so much credit because they never wavered in their support that we had done the right thing to bring them back in-house, bring them back into the family. Disney Store had an outsized impact on the overall perception of Disney brand around the world because of the number of visitors who visited a Disney Store. And as you know, Disney Store is one of the few free Disney experiences. You can go to a Disney Store for free. Anything else, you had to buy a movie ticket or buy a streaming service or buy a park ticket or buy a cruise ticket. And I think that's why we had such an outsized impact on the overall perception of the Disney brand.
Well, and not to tell your story too much, but you talked about how you went back to the Imagineers and how the whole sense of wonder is what you brought back to Disney stores. It was a case study and everything right about retail and the magic mirror and so many things that were just right on trend. And when they were closed, I was kind of like, are you kidding me? Because in your book, it was not a great time. And I don't know how much you want to go into that. I have some other things to talk about. But before we get there, we also have another thing in common. I grew up in Ottawa Hills, just outside.
Oh my gosh. The wealthy part, for your listeners, the wealthy part of Toledo, Ohio.
Actually, my dad would always say we were from the poor part of Ohio.
Okay, the poor part of it. But still, compared to where I grew up, the wealthy part.
Yeah, so, we share that, both wanting to get
That's
out
so
of there
funny.
and running away,
Yes.
and now you're in
Yes.
Atlanta instead of Los
Yes.
Angeles. But, I think yeah, I think certainly the book is all pride, no ego for everybody who we will talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But
Sure.
I think that whole journey with consumer goods, you're at Gap at the top of its form, you were at Disney stores,
100%.
top of its form, and, I still think that, Disney stores as they um, were such a beacon of what was
Mm,
right about experiential retail. And people put
100%.
in rock walls and things, and oh, there's a basketball hoop, and you're kind of like, yeah, that's not even being used by most people.
Mhm.
So, do you think that concept would still work today? Do you think that?
100%. I mean, listen, I would have had to, if I stayed at Disney, I would have had to rationalize the size of the fleet like every other retailer. I mean, the physical digital rationalization, mall traffic going up and down, the number of stores in the fleet, the number of physical stores per market. I would have had to lead that strategy as well. And we were already doubling down on improving the store experience in our best stores and the best stores in the fleet and improving our digital footprint, disneystore.com. And it's been ironic because I know you're a student of retail, Bob. In the last 4 months, Disney quietly shifted back from shopdisney.com to disneystore.com, which I found
Oh,
really ironic, like 10 years after my leaving. Because again, the Disney store brand is a very strong sub brand of the overall mothership,
all
the Disney
right.
brand, right? And consumers around the world in multiple languages and multiple cultures understood that brand and understood that it was experiential and, to your point, destination retail. And I think what drove us, Bob, and you were there for the presentation, is we understood that everything in that store, physical or digital, was a wish fulfillment or a gift. There was no basic needs in that store. No one needs a Cinderella costume to survive, or a Mickey Mouse plush. But when we saw what it did for kids and what it did for family, we definitely felt that we were filling like a mental need and like a social need. We were bringing joy, we were bringing magic. And we pushed ourselves to be authentic, exclusive, and original, because honestly, who our competition was the license division, who was selling Disney product at Target and Walmart, and at the time Toys R Us and Kohl's and J.C. Penney. And we loved them. They were our brothers and sisters. They made a lot of money. But our team had to give a reason for mom or dad or grandma or aunt and uncle to drive past Target to go to the mall that had a Disney store. And if I was going to pull you there, I had to make it special.
Yeah.
And I
Oh, they
had to make
certainly
it
were.
and I had to make it unique. And so, and by the way, those are code words, as you know, because you're a guru of retail. It was expensive. Those stores were not cheap to build. This wasn't about building the cheapest store. Of course, we were cost conscious and tried to be efficient as we could. But the capital, the 10-year leases, that was a lot. I mean, what was on the balance sheet was a lot of investment when you talk about over 400 stores around the world. But I mean, I was proud of our team to be part of that amazing turnaround story.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know we don't have a ton of time, but when people read the book, I would still be there today, Bob. It was my favorite job I ever had. And if I hadn't had the change in leadership, like I'm a classic example, like an HR case study. If Andy Mooney had stayed, or if somebody had been promoted to replace Andy that was more believing in Disney Store and believing in me as a leader, I'd still be there today. I would have retired from that job or named my replacement and moved on to some kind of an advisor role. I absolutely, and it's no offense against anybody I worked with at DreamWorks or Fox or Claire's or Gap. But when people ask me now to look back, those 4 years as president of Disney
Yeah,
Store
of
were
course.
truly the peak.
Yeah, I got to visit and see the
Yeah.
store mock-up that you had there, and,
Yeah.
all of
What
that
a
stuff,
gift. Again, like
you
what
know?
a gift. The investment. I was the other day, one of the gentlemen who went on all those tours with me. He was like an IT guy. And by the way, like basically an intern level. He's now a director at Apple. His birthday was the other day, and I sent him a note because and we were reminiscing that I think we did over 400 tours of that mock-up place. And every time I gave a tour to people like you from the industry, to press, to people internally, I learned something and we tweaked something every time. And that prototype, which was a direct gift from Steve Jobs, who said, let them build a prototype, give them the money, let them play with this concept. Don't let them just, so many retailers open their new concept, as you know, Bob, and then tweak it after it's already open. He was like, I want you to do all your tweaks like we did with Apple Store in warehouse, in a mock-up. And it was a fully functioning store. You were there, live POS, live product, people could shop. We often brought school kids in school groups and just watched them shop and, let them buy 3 items or whatever. But that was such a gift. And again, I don't think that would have happened if Steve, may he rest in peace, had not been on the board and been such a passionate advocate for retail.
Well, that brings me to a point. So, what do you think brands get wrong when they do new stores? I mean, you see enough of them around in your regular.
I think so many of them concentrate on the transactional part of retail and not on the storytelling, the magic part of retail. And I think honestly, if I have to give credit to an industry, I'd say the beauty industry probably understands experiential retail better in general and usually invests in really manifesting their brand physically. I think there's brands like Lululemon, Faraday, Shinola that really do bring storytelling in. But the thing is when a board of directors or a C-suite is looking at it, Bob, again, experiential stores, not only building experiential stores with the props and the magic and the IT and all of the, the surprise and delight, it's also about the staffing in those stores. We spent more money to hire better quality customer service, guest experience people. I mean, I literally said, and you'll understand this, Bob, I do not want clerks. Clerks are people that stand behind the register and you walk up to them and you put all your stuff on the conveyor belt and they bring you out and they're pleasant and they say cash or charge and they transact you. Disney Store could not have clerks. I needed to have mini brand ambassadors. I needed to have people, and honestly, the best people we hired will not surprise you, Bob. Preschool teachers, people who were theater majors. It was literally casting. We called it casting. Daycare givers, moms who wanted to work 20 hours a week when their kids were in school. Some of our best cast members around the world, because they wanted to interact. They actually wanted to provide service. They wanted to create magic. And we trained on interacting with the child and interacting with the caregiver, the parent, the grandparent. Like when you were in Disney Store, we had to appeal to both because kids don't actually transact. Kids demand, kids want, kids point. But at the end of the day, the parent, the adult that's with them has to do the transaction. So we had to stimulate, both of them.
It's like I frequently tell people about having a blog. It's like it's easy to put a lot of content out there, and it's almost like you're putting dog food out in front of dogs. Like, of course, yeah, I'll take that. But eventually,
Totally.
you need the person that's buying the dog food to buy from you because otherwise, you don't have a business. And I think that's probably the hard
1,000%.
thing with the Disney stores that I'm sure the halo effect of what that did for the brand couldn't be quantified as much as what it cost. And
1,000%.
right. And so because the guy that came after you, and that's a horrible story, and the way it all happened, and almost as bad as you walking back in from Fox back into Disney with all the people and
Mm.
how the mindset
He
had
read the
changed.
book, listeners. He
Well,
read the book.
what
Yeah.
else would I maybe on my thing? Which brings me to the point I probably should actually
Yeah.
get to your book a little bit. You have said that emotional intelligence is the key to authentic leadership.
Yes.
So, why and how do we cultivate that in the young leaders that listen to us now?
Yeah. Well, first off, I think we actually have to teach it. I think it's teachable. I think we have to teach people what emotional intelligence is, what empathy is, what compassion is, what active listening is. Those are skills. I firmly believe it. Yes, some of it is innate. And I think there's some people who naturally have higher EQ than others, but I do think it's a teachable skill. And at the same time, you have to teach IQ. I mean, I think to be in retail, you have to be smart. Retail is such a blend of art and science. And especially now, there is so much data about retail as e-commerce has grown, and it's almost like data overload. But I think the best retailers always blended their intuition, their gut with the data. And obviously, I mean, you mentioned earlier, I learned at, the feet of one of them, Mickey Drexler, at the heyday of Gap, right? Who was the master of blending intuition and gut with data and facts. And so I think, you teach them early on, and then you put leaders in front of them and managing them who are walking the walk and talking the talk. I mean, you need role models, you need mentors. And, my entire theory of authentic leadership is really rooted in how you achieve the goals is as important as achieving the goals themselves. I mean, my management style is two heads are better than one. Let's figure this out together. This I used to say all the time, and I still feel this way about retail. It's not brain surgery. So we can make some mistakes. We're not going to kill anybody if we make some mistakes, but retail is a test and roll kind of industry. You should be trying some things. You should be taking some risks. You should be trying something in one market and then rolling it out in others if it works. And so
And it's a game of being brilliant on those basics. That's to
yeah,
me, that's
exactly.
the
No,
game.
and
It's
to
gotta
me,
be
I
people get it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I think building the right retail team, it starts with literally the job description and the recruiting process and the interview process, because you should be looking for these skills in the interview process. And you can be making notes about, oh, they're trainable, or oh, they're showing glimmers. Nobody's perfect, right? But you also, if somebody says to me, and believe me, they would come in and I would ask, why do you want to work at Disney Store? If their main answer was you get a discount to go to the park, okay, that's not the right answer, right? Like it was
Even if that's
truth.
it, you shouldn't have said it to me, right?
Yeah, don't say it out loud, right? Or don't lead with that, right? Tell me that you want to create magic. Tell me you want to tell me stories, like you and I are doing storytelling. Like tell me a story. When was the first time you went to a Disney store? How did that make you feel? And then do you actually shop Disney Store, or have you shopped Disney Store,
Interesting.
right?
I remember your old
Um,
Disney stores. They were all black and they were dark and they were
so
just
dark and
filled with
dusty and filled
with
with
old
animatronics.
hand touched merch, and you're just like, I don't, this is creepy. I wouldn't want to go in there. And one of the innovations that they did was lit it so well, but the path was that circular path, which was
Totally.
so counterintuitive to what
Well,
most
and we eliminated the
go in.
ceiling, to your point, Bob. Like, right? I mean, it was just a blacked out ceiling. I mean, we did not do a drop ceiling.
Yeah.
So it kind of looked like it was just going into
Yeah.
darkness. And we weren't afraid that people were going to look up, particularly adults. Kids didn't really look up that much and see some
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Just I
But that
love the whole
allowed us, yeah, allowed us to have height.
I love that
We
whole
needed
thing. Well,
height.
I need to get to the title of the book, which is All
Sure.
Pride, No Ego: A Queer Executive's Journey to Living and Leading Authentically. And in the book, you talk about how there weren't many mentors or guidance for you, and you also mentioned the concept of inviting people in rather than coming out.
Coming
So,
out.
what does
Yeah.
that mean to you, and how's that shaped your approach, particularly since Disney?
Well, it was interesting. I mean, one of the benefits of writing the book, you spent a lot of time looking back, the benefits of hindsight. And it was one of the things I learned when writing the book. I was, oh my God, I never had a gay boss. Like in my entire and I hadn't consciously, it's not like I consciously searched out a gay boss. I had incredible bosses. I had bad bosses and incredible bosses. But it turns out that all of my bosses were straight men and straight women for really across the board. And I learned and took something away from all of them. Uh, but I think there were times where I would have liked to had more of a mentor relationship with someone who was kind of experiencing the C-suite and experiencing the career path with, a more thorough understanding of my own story and the insecurities that I was feeling, and, the things that, generational trauma and burdens that I brought with me since, kiddom and teendom. The whole inviting in versus coming out, a lot of times when everybody always wants to know your coming out story, right? And a lot of people in our ally community think we only come out once, right? And it's like everybody really wants the like drama story of when you told your parents the first time or when you told your work. But the reality is, as a member of the queer community, you're coming out all the time, because anytime you walk into a new environment or a new group or a new meeting, or like me, when I moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta after, being in the West Coast almost 25 years, I'm having to tell my story again and choosing. And that's really where I started to flip the script, choosing on whether I was going to invite you into my story or not. Because there is a certain degree of psychological safety and physical safety where you're like, you know what, people have to earn my trust a little bit. Like, I have to understand that they're not going to physically threaten me or harm me in any way when I choose to share my truth. And that doesn't mean I'm being inauthentic. It just means that I'm more guarded. And I think moving to the South after 25 years in California, I had to do that again. I had to be like, okay, wait a minute.
Well, that's
Safe environment. Is this safe environment? Okay, it's safe. I'm going to go. But
I'm younger than you are, and I worked for a company that was just always trying to find out if I was gay,
yeah,
always, and questioning things and things behind your back and all this, and that really takes its toll, especially if you're a top performer, because you're always afraid that the rug will be pulled out from
you're always
underneath
on
you.
guard. Yeah, and the thing that they don't understand, and again, you've read the book, the thing they don't understand, by managing us that way or not allowing us to fully embrace who we are, they're not getting the best version of us, because we're constantly wasting energy and brain power and emotional, again, the EQ, emotional intelligence and emotional energy, on truly negative things. Like, you shouldn't have to be worrying about getting, quote, discovered. And
But
you
yet
also
that's still probably happening. I mean, right
it's
now,
of
right?
course still happening. And part of what my mission and message with the book is, and I've been on this book tour for a couple of months now, is, and again, it depends on where you live in the United States. It depends on your geography. It depends on what industry you're in. It depends on your age. There's still people who are losing their jobs for being LGBTQ, or not getting promoted for being LGBTQ, or have lost protections. There's states in the United States, we all know, where they've lost protections for being LGBTQ.
So
And
what would you think in 2024? You're a young man or young woman,
mhm,
trans person, whatever it's going to be. How do you handle it? Because kids are coming out now at like 7, right?
yeah,
And they're like, I
totally.
know I am, whatever. But it's still, you have to find a way to be
Mhm,
authentic. I think you talk about that a lot in your
mhm.
book. So, it's
Yeah,
certainly different than the 80s.
very different. Well, I mean, I think in general, and again, I want to caveat it by where people live. In general, it's a much more understanding and forgiving community than what I came out in the 80s, for sure. You do not have, even though HIV is not cured, you do not have the specter of HIV and AIDS hanging over your announcement, which was a huge part of the 80s and 90s, because you owned you were gay, and then everybody automatically assumed you were sick or infected, or positive. And it created so many issues within our community, the positive community, the non-positive community, the whole bit. Um, and so do I think it's easier for kids today? Yes. But I also think it's still very dependent on their family situation, their school situation, the town that they live in. And by doing it, they're still taking a risk, the same risk that any of us took.
Yeah.
And I'm not cavalier about it. I've counseled many people before I wrote this book and after I wrote the book about, you have to think, I mentioned it earlier, you have to think about psychological and physical safety first. And if you're not in a position to fully come out, then temper it, right? And again, that doesn't mean that you're not being authentic, but protect yourself first. And I also think what's happening is a lot of the under 30 crowd is doing a lot of research on states and cities and municipalities before they decide where they want to live and where they want to work. And that includes, I have two straight nieces who are 21 and 23, but are allies of the community, obviously, and have every color of the rainbow friends, like non-binary, pansexual, the whole bit. They don't want to live in an environment where their friends don't feel safe, right? So as allies, they're literally doing, the older ones in her career already, the younger ones graduating in 2025, they're already thinking about, the younger one wants to go to law school. She's thinking about, where can I go to law school and where can I practice law, where it's going to be the type of community that I believe in, like a welcoming, inclusive sense of belonging community.
It's interesting because we used to say that would be like most people say, "Oh, San Francisco, maybe LA,"
Totally.
right? There would be like 1 or 2, but if I was a community leader, I'd be taking that information going like, "Oh, that'd be a different
I
downtown,
think,
a
and
different
it's funny.
idea,"
I
right?
mean, me living in Atlanta, I think, to your point, I think the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, our mayor of Atlanta, the city council, has rolled out the welcoming, the red
Nice.
carpet for all communities, all marginalized communities. It doesn't mean the state of Georgia is easy, but the municipality of Atlanta is quite
Gets it.
welcoming and
Nice.
quite inclusive.
Nice. Well, we are going to take a little pause there before we continue. We love our loyal listeners, and I'd appreciate you giving us a 5-star review on your favorite platform because otherwise the algorithm doesn't know that you love me as much as I love you. So there you go. We'll return from this quick word about Sales RX. All right, and we're back with Jim Fielding. He is the author of the book All Pride, No Ego. So you say your favorite Disney character is Jiminy Cricket. Why is that?
Well, I mean, Pinocchio is the first movie I remember seeing in a movie theater with my mom. Now, I'm not old enough that I saw it when it originally came out. Obviously, it was a re-release. Um, but what I love about Jiminy is he's a moral center in that film. He's a best friend. He tries to be a conscience, and he's extremely loyal. And so I liked what he represented, his story. I also, as I got older, realized that I really liked his character design. Like, I liked the way he was drawn. I liked his outfit. I liked a lot of stuff about him. And as a cast member at Disney, your first day when you go to Disney Way One, I mean the orientation, and everybody goes to it. You go around the room and they ask you who your favorite character is. What they don't tell you at the time is that's going to go on your name badge. And so it was on my name badge, the entire 12 years I was there. And what's great about it is it becomes a way to break the ice with somebody and tell a story, because you would see their name and then you would see. Now in the parks, people will know, your listeners will know, it says their hometown. It serves the same purpose, right? It serves as an icebreaker. Oh, you're from Columbia. Oh, you're from Columbus, Ohio. In headquarters, its favorite character again serves as an icebreaker. Oh, you chose Cruella DeVille. Tell me why, right? You like, that's interesting, and a lot of people did like Cruella.
Oh, head of HR. That's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
exactly. You chose Ariel, right? You chose, and then there was the people who took it very seriously, and they're like, I want to have a villain and a hero, right? I want to switch my name badges depending on my mood. I was like, oh, okay. So it became a really good way. First off, we all wore name badges, so it was really easy to acknowledge people by name. But right under that name badge, you would see their favorite character. And of course, it's not fair to make assumptions, but if somebody liked Hercules, you kind of understood them a little bit, right? If somebody liked Wally, a lot of people loved Wally, a character who never spoke, like you're like, okay, I get you a little bit, right? I'm not trying to make assumptions. And when I would meet a fellow Jiminy Cricket person, and believe me, I wasn't the only one who had Jiminy as his favorite, there was a certain kind of bond with that too.
No, I love that. That's part of the stuff I teach in my sales training. So,
Yeah.
you're playing now at this intersection of media and retail. So, what
Mm,
emerging trends do you think are shaping the future? I'm sorry, I just have to go on record. I don't think it's the metaverse. I don't think we want to go and
no,
become
no,
a
no, I don't. I'm
Tron.
not going
But
into that. No.
3 years ago, that's all we heard. So, what do you think? What is it?
Well, I
Authentic.
think,
We get that, right? So,
yeah, I
authentic.
think, I
Got to
think,
be.
I think what's interesting, even when I look at some of the projects that I'm currently working on, I'm going to tap dance around my NDAs a little bit, because I'm, in my consulting business. But one that I can talk openly about is, we did the retail experience for Uncle Nearest Distillery in Shelbyville, Tennessee. I think this is an incredible example of where experiential retail and branded retail is going. So Uncle Nearest is Uncle Nearest Green Distillery is a Black-owned whiskey distillery in Shelbyville, Tennessee, actually on the land where the original distillery was. And Nearest Green was a freed Black slave who actually helped develop Jack Daniels. So if you think about that,
Wow.
and this incredible husband and wife team named Fawn and Keith Weaver bought the rights to the story, bought the original formulas, and went and bought this farm and have created this incredible brand over the last 5, 6, 7 years. We were brought in when they were building their visitor center, um, because she wanted my Disney experience. And she's like, I want my visitor center to tell the nearest green story, but I want it to tell not only, the nearest green story like a museum, I want to tell it in product and I want to tell it in experiences. And so I do see brands, again, I mentioned beauty earlier, uh, alcohol brands who are investing in experiential retail. I think the other space I've been spending a lot of time on and I see a lot of investment in is sports. As you see all these new arenas coming online, stadiums, retail is actually part of the discussion. It's retail and it's F&B, right? So it's the stadium and the locker rooms and the parking and the seating and the suites and all that, but it's also what is the retail footprint going to be? What is the F&B footprint going to be? And we've been working with a large NBA basketball team based in LA that's not called the Lakers for the last 2.5 years, getting ready for their new dome that's opening this fall. I mean, pretty much everybody knows which one it is. And we're doing multiple retail sites within that arena, big, small, flagship, walkthrough. And I see that as an industry. Like, again, sports is a fan experience. And so a ticketed event, like creating tangible memories through product from a game that you attended, I see that happening as well. And I think the other thing that's happening, and I know, Bob, you've talked about it, is I do see a return to specialty. Like, I think it's been interesting moving to Atlanta where we still have shopping districts. Like, you will walk to, like Virginia Highlands, or you'll walk to Krog Street Market or Ponce City Market, and
Ponce City Market, I spoke there.
they're mom and pop shops. They're not all national chains, right? And they're curated. One of the things that I love, it's a word that I probably overuse, is it's specialty retail because it's a curated assortment. It means someone actually took the time and said, I have 2,000 square feet or I have 2,500 square feet. I'm going to tell a story here. And whether that's the story of, I was in a store recently where everything had to do with bees and honey, right? Like, literally the entire assortment was about bees and honey. And what I loved about it was, like, if you wanted something about bees and honey, that was a place to go. If you didn't, they weren't trying to be anything that they weren't, right? They weren't trying to be a superstore. And I've loved moving to Atlanta the last 3 years and just getting out into some of these local shopping streets and, discovering some of these little gems. And being on the road, I have to put the plug in for the independent bookstores too, because I've seen some incredible investment in recreating the bookstore of yesteryear, with, again, an edited, focused reason for being and space for author events and space for community events. My God, I was at Magic City Books in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Tomorrow Bookstore in Indianapolis, Indiana. Just incredible investment. Not huge, not Barnes and Noble superstores, but a very edited, focused, special bookstore. And Mickey Drexler, that's one of the things I took away from Mickey. He used to say, we are a specialty store, and special is in the word. And you do not have to be all things to all people. Who has to be all things to all people is Amazon and Walmart. Like, that's different, right?
That's very different. We don't have them on our show. I'm just saying.
No, it's a very different. No, but I do feel a return to that. Listen, retail is hard, and I see a lot of vacancies. And I go to these cities, and I am a student of retail, and I'll just be driving around and be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how many vacancies there are." This region got hit hard by COVID or variety of reasons. But at the same time, I do see innovation, and I do see entrepreneurship, and I do see people trying.
Yeah, I think a lot of poor retailers got put out of business.
Bob, this is why you and I bond. I say all the time, people still love retail. They just don't like bad retail.
No, I'm
right?
not going to pay. I have a blog coming out. A short plug for the blog. I'm going to have a blog about driving the new Bentley W12 for a weekend, which was unbelievable. But the whole idea was I'd share some of these horrible stories, and one of them was going into a watch company on Madison Avenue. You would know the name that start with a T. They've been acquired. And I'm looking at watches, and the guy is looking on his phone on the counter, and I think he's just going to move away when I come up, and he doesn't. And I was able to take out my phone and take a picture of him. And I thought, does anyone else see what I see? And that's what, if you're listening to this,
Mhm.
well, obviously you are listening to this podcast. We're about as successful as we make our minds up to be. And on the one
Yeah.
side, I appreciate what Jim has done with the Disney stores, and I can't imagine all that money went into all those props and everything. I hope they didn't just throw them into trash heaps, or put them in at least to the main parks and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But it still comes down to attention to detail. And as we come to the end of our time here together, and looking back over your varied and successful career, what advice would you give to a young LGBTQ plus professional who sees themselves in leadership, but traditionally in these conservative sectors?
Mhm.
How should they show up differently? Are they going to be protesting? Are they going to be writing letters? Are they going to be? I mean, any
Well,
answer is
yeah.
right. So
I think again, I think each individual story, they kind of determine their own story. But I mean, obviously what I encourage is for them to show up as the best version of themselves, whatever they are comfortable with, and again, feel safe with. What I encourage anybody, queer or anybody who's entering retail, and I did it, is when you're young and just starting out, listen and learn and volunteer for everything and do lateral moves. I think so many young people are so worried about getting promoted and more responsibility and getting up. And, one of the reasons that I think I was a successful CEO and president was I was a field person. I was a district manager who went into merchandising, right? I did both sides. I ran stores, I merchandise stores. I know what Black Friday means. I know what the day after Christmas means, accepting all those returns. I know what it means to hire and train multiple staffs in a market. And then I was able to flip with Gap and learn how product was made in the heyday of how product was made. I mean, not to age myself, but when I took over, when I moved into merchandising, I was in denim. We were still making 90% of the denim in the United States. And I'm talking the denim was made in the South. It was cut and sewn in Kentucky, and then it was washed in San Antonio. It was that. And by the way, we were still able to sell those jeans for $30, right? Um, and make margin. And I learned, like when I became the sweater merchant, they sent me to Italy for 4 weeks to work with the Italian agent. And I went and saw sheep getting shorn and yarn getting made, and then how a sweater was made. And that's the thing for young people that sometimes I get sad because it wasn't like it was a formal training program, but I put myself in positions. And when they said, "Do you want to go to Italy for 4 weeks to learn how sweaters are made?" The answer was yes, like without hesitation. Do you want to do knits now? Yes. Okay, we're going to send you to Guatemala so you learn how a t-shirt is made. Got it. Right. And I I worry sometimes that we've lost that as an industry because it to me, a huge part of my retail success was on the job training, right? Somebody saw something in me, they stretched me, they allowed me to learn and grow. But again, I did some lateral moves. There was moves, I went from doing men's denim to men's sweaters. Same job title, same compensation. Sweaters was a much smaller business than denim. A lot of people would have stayed in denim because it was the largest department. I took that sweaters job because I wanted to learn another category, right?
I love
Then
that.
I moved to knits. And so that's the advice that I give young people, queer or not, is look, always be open to those opportunities because these doors and windows open. And don't be so hell-bent on like, oh, I've got to get promoted and I've got to have people reporting to me and I've got to have a team of 10. That will come. But early in your career, learn the foundation,
I think that's great.
learn the fundamentals.
I think that's wonderful. I would add on to that when I was first starting off working at the Glendale Galleria in whatever
Mm.
it was in the 80s,
Disney store number one, Bob, Glendale
it was it,
Galleria.
and it was before Disney was even there. And I said, "There's no way this job will ever do more than just get me through college." I sold
Right.
shoes, and I look back and I think, "Wow, all the opportunities I had came from retail." And that brings us to the last question I always ask
Sure.
every guest. So, tell me something good about retail, Jim.
I mean, I do believe I still am optimistic about retail, and I do see these green shoots everywhere where people are morphing and reinventing retail for 2024 and beyond. And I think it's our job as consumers and people who care about the industry to support them. And when I say support them, I mean physically go into their stores or physically go to the, virtually go to their website. And listen, it's super easy. And no offense against Amazon and Walmart, it's super easy to just go to Amazon and add to cart, right? But I think it's much more joyful to do some investigation and just shop, just walk around and shop. And sometimes shopping doesn't mean buying, right? It just means observing.
I
It
love that.
just means,
I have, although when I go to the mall, it's all work for me. So there you
yeah,
go.
I know.
Well,
But
it's been
I
great talking with you
get
today,
the joy
Tim.
back.
You should
Yeah,
all
you
look.
too.
You should all look for the book "All Pride, No Ego." It's out there right now, published by Wiley and Sons, and we're looking forward to hearing your next updates. Thanks so much for
Thank
joining
you
me
so
today, Tim.
much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.